to Ask God Today Ministries, and I am so blessed and excited to have Jared Easley with us today. How are you today, Jared?
I'm behaving.
Well, that's good. Behaving is good. Good behavior. Good behavior. Okay. Before we get started today, normally what I do with the people that are on my show, Jared, is kind of tell me a little bit about your backstory, maybe a little bit about when you accepted Christ and surrendered your life to the Lord.
Sure. Well, my name's Jared, like the jewelry store, or for any guys listening, like the Subway guy. And my last name's Easley, easily to remember, or easily like Sunday morning.
There you go.
And when I say that to people, they're more likely to remember my name. So that may not have worked. That may have failed. But I am the co-founder of an event called the Podcast Movement, and I have a host. I host a podcast just like you do, Brenda, and that's called Starve the Doubts. And long story short, if we go back to when I was young, I was raised in a Christian home, and my parents are just amazing people. And so I became a Christian at a young age, surrendered my life to Christ when I was little. And I think as you get a little bit older, you start to work through your salvation, especially if you're seeking God and you're reading the Bible, and you start to have a better understanding of what that means. And there's seasons, in not everyone's life, but in my life, there was a season where I kind of broke away a little bit, just because I'd always grown up in church and I'd always grown up involved in some type of ministry or something like that. So when I was a little bit older and I was alone, I was out on my own, I wasn't as active for a little while. And then God used a series of events to draw me back, as he does with so many, and I'm so grateful for that. And I'm just thankful. I went into the military, I was in the Navy, and I was on a submarine. And that experience on the submarine was so challenging that it ultimately just drew me back to God, and really helped me to understand that I need to be seeking God daily. And so that experience drew me closer to the Lord, and I got out of the military. And now I'd say I'm kind of a wantrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur. I have a side business, but I also do consulting and stuff. So I'm not a full-time business owner, all-in business owner, but I do have a business that's making money that is a proof of concept that is growing and eventually is going to become the full-time thing.
Awesome. So that's cool. So as you did say, we introduced you. You are Jared Easley and everything. To my readers, I want people to understand, and to the listeners today, a little bit about who you are and how you came about everything. You are a best-selling author of the book called Podcasting Good to Great and How to Grow Your Audience Through Collaboration. And you know what, to be honest with you, Jared, when I first heard the word collaboration, I had to look in the dictionary to see exactly what does that mean. And I know that's crazy, but can you elaborate a little bit for us on that today?
Well, sure, because when I started building my online brand and trying to create this online opportunity that some people are interested in with business, because I've seen other people and know and have heard about other people who've had success with that, I'm interested in that as well. And in that beginning process, my idea was, let me look at some of the big players. Let me see what they're doing, and then I can try to connect with them, try to have relationships and rapport with them, and that will somehow help me to work through this process. And what I found was that's not true. I met a lot of really smart people who were gracious and generous to give me some time in an interview on a podcast, but it wasn't their job to set me up for success with a business. And I tried, going to events and paying for all kinds of trainings and stuff. And I don't regret any of that because it helped me along the path. But what I found that works more than anything else, Brenda, and this is the key here, is collaboration, like you mentioned. Collaboration is working with other people to achieve a goal. And when you're working with other people, you increase the likelihood of the project or whatever it is you're pursuing to become more visible, and you increase the likelihood of having success. And I think a pitfall that some people stumble into is this idea of, I'm a one-man gang. I can just do everything. It's on me. Or I don't have the resources to go out and have people help me on certain levels. So therefore, it just has to be on me. And I understand pieces of that because, believe me, I'm in the trenches like everyone else. I'm not bringing home 6 figures a month by any means. I mean, I'm working through this process. That said, I found that there are ways to collaborate with people. So there's I've heard people say that the way this works when you're trying to work with other people is you look at the top of the mountain. Who are the folks who are way up there? Those are the people you want to, quote unquote, partner up with. You want to try to work with those people. The people who are kind of on your level, you want to kind of collaborate with them too. You want to work with them a little bit. And then the people who are underneath, who are not as high up as you are, you're supposed to mentor them. And I don't think that's bad advice, but what I found is the real opportunity is when you're collaborating with people who aren't necessarily where you are. And that seems counterintuitive, but the reason that's been so effective for me is when I collaborate with people, I tend to work with people who are just gung-ho and want to go for it. And they may not have all the answers, but they're willing to find the answers. And some people who are higher up the mountain, they might not want to collaborate with someone who's beneath them, but that's an opportunity for you and I to connect with those types of folks and create synergy, right? And so there's a quote by John F. Kennedy. He says, "The rising tide lifts all the boats." And I love that quote because I really believe that's true. When you're working in collaboration, when you're working in sync with other people, regardless of their status, regardless of what level they are, when you find unique ways to work together, that's called creating an army. So in the book that you mentioned, I talk about when you're starting an idea and you want people to be on board with the idea or support the idea. If it's just you saying, "Hey, like my idea," not very many people are going to resonate with that. But your idea tends to get noticed if there's a lot of people that are talking about your idea. And the only way to generate that type of opportunity is to first be more interested in what other people are doing than you are trying to be interesting. And again, some of this is counterintuitive because it seems like in business, you're like, "Oh, you got to be the expert. You got to be this and this." And well, what if I'm not the expert yet? If I'm not the expert yet, I need to learn, and that's okay. Can I grow a business and still learn? And the answer is yes. So I tell people, be the noticer, right? If you want to get noticed, start by being the noticer. Start by being more interested than trying to be interesting. As you do that with a handful of people, more and more people resonate with that. They relate to that, and they appreciate you, Brenda. So it could be as simple as you commenting on their Facebook post or sharing their blog post or writing a handwritten card. It can be a number of ways to notice people. As long as it's authentic and sincere, people know that. They appreciate it, and over time they're like, let me tell you about Brenda. Brenda's amazing. Brenda. And then you got several people saying, "We love Brenda." Well, people start to hear that, and they're like, "Oh, there must be something going on with Brenda. What's Brenda up to?" It's funny how that works. If it's just you, Brenda, saying, "Me, hello, no, anybody?" That sometimes works, sometimes it doesn't. But when you have a lot of people, or even just a handful of people saying, "We love Brenda," there's something that starts there. And you think about Jesus. I won't get into a big tangent here, but when Jesus was starting his ministry, you've seen that picture that's painted of him and other men around a table. It's this 12 disciples. Jesus he started with 12, right? And look at where Christianity is today, where it started with 12 people. What if you could just focus and notice and be interested in 12 folks that you want to serve, you want to help? That could create momentum to really change the opportunities that you currently have. It can open up more doors. It can grow the visibility of what you're doing, increase the likelihood of your success. So I think be more interested than you are trying to be interesting, and start by being the noticer if you want to get noticed.
And you say that your book came out, the end of August? Well, in July, I'll just tell you what you've done to help my steps, okay? In July, I actually went to She Speaks conference, which was
cool.
In Charlotte with Proverbs 31. Well, there's 650 some women there that come, and they all have the story. I just want to make the name of Jesus known. I want to write and tell my story. And so that's where 650 women were. So when I came back from She Speaks, and then your book came out, and I started reading about collaboration, and God had spoke to me while I was up there, showing me there's all these women that want to do the same thing. I came back, and God just laid on my heart, open up your website to other people. And so now, and you mentioned 12, it's so ironic, but I opened it up in November and asked if anybody would be willing to write or volunteer for the website. Do you know I came up with 12 writers? So there was 12 writers plus myself, and we have an editor. And so it was so cool. But I just took that, just the thought of that came so real to me that God opened that up. And of course it's all Him, because he's the one that has made it, work the way it has. But it's just the thought of what I learned from reading your book, and I love to encourage others anyway, and I love to share other people's things and do that sort of thing. And so, but I made it a reality. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's what more of us need to do. I think instead of just sitting around saying, because everybody hates to self-promote anyway. Nobody really likes that self-promotion thing. And so it's always amazing when you have 2 or 3 others that can be, like you said, talking about, what's Jared doing? Look at Jared. I'd never heard of Jared Easley until I met Jimmy Burgess, and Jimmy Burgess, introduced your book to people. And so that's how other people have helped make you known as well, as far as that goes.
Right.
But that's something that people don't like to do. They don't like to self-promote. So what do you tell people that are trying to try to do it on their own? You're saying, let's join the forces of other people and let's see how we do it that way.
Yeah, I think so. So the self-promotion piece, there are ways, and I've learned this through trial and error and through lots of mistakes. There are appropriate ways to self-promote. And on some level, Brenda, you have to self-promote. And I'm going to explain that. And I don't even like the word necessary evil, but there's verses in Proverbs that talk about, don't talk too much, don't bring too much attention to yourself, so there's wisdom in that, right? God's trying to help you, but the opportunity for self-promotion is when you're focusing whatever it is that you're sharing, not on you, but on the value that it brings to other people. And as long as it's addressed, let's pretend it's a Facebook status. If the Facebook status is, hey, check out my show, maybe I don't care about your show. But hey, this, thank you. I'm going to throw out a random name. Thank you to Jimmy Burgess for sharing how he overcame this and how God used this to really change his life, and what impact that can have on where you are in your, in your journey, or there's some kind of way where you can frame it where it's valuable to the other person. That's when it becomes something that they are willing to consider, right? And I think just that word consider, I think instead of saying check this out, saying would you be willing to consider checking this out? Just being nice about asking it goes a long way. So there's little things. Another thing that I found that's a little bit of a Jedi mind trick is when you're sharing something, when you're asking someone or wanting to persuade someone, you follow that persuasive request up with a comment. Does that sound reasonable? And the reason I love that, does that sound reasonable when you're asking, right? When it's an appropriate ask, does that sound reasonable? Is most people aren't going to say, well, no, Brenda, that doesn't sound reasonable. And if they do, they're probably not somebody you want to be collaborating with anyway. But when you say, does that sound reasonable? In most cases, they kind of pause and think, do I want to just straight up say no? And they could. But most people will say, no, yeah, that sounds reasonable. And it kind of gets people to start, if they start saying yes, I mean, that's not intended to be a manipulation. It's just a way to kind of politely and gently get people to think, hey, this is something that I want to consider supporting or being a part of. So I love that little trick. And someone taught me that, Joel Zaslowski from The Value of Simple. He shared that with me, and I've used that ever since, and I found that to be a great way to kind of get people on board is when you ask them something followed up, does that sound reasonable? And you'd be surprised to see what kind of impact that has. It's funny, but it works.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'll have to use that sometimes.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, tell me what you think.
Okay.
It's like the question. I go up to the grocery clerk, and I don't know her for anything, and she doesn't know me, and I'm trying to be nice and trying to start a conversation, and so I'll ask right out of the gate, are you behaving? Just like you asked me how am I doing, I said I'm behaving. I'll ask them and say, are you behaving? And that's so cheesy and fun and kind of dumb, but most people who don't know you, they're working or they're doing whatever they're doing through their day, and then someone asks them a question like that, they kind of smile and they laugh and they'll either say, well, yes, I have to, or no, I'm not behaving. They're going to give some kind of answer that's kind of fun or kind of funny. And I found that's a great way to break the ice. So anybody that's listening to this and that's coming into a new situation, that's a fun way to break the ice and ask a question. It's like, hey, are you behaving today? Yeah. And it's cheesy, but some people get a laugh out of it. It's kind of a fun conversation starter. Sorry, that was a tangent.
That's cool. Okay. So I know you started a podcast movement. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what's going on and when it is and everything?
Well, I'm a bit absolutely. I'm a huge fan of podcasting. I love podcasting, and I've listened to podcasts for several years. And I finally created my own. And Brenda, starting a podcast is not easy, and there's a lot of work that goes into that. And I just loved podcasting. I wanted to hang out with other people that do it, and I found out there was an event in Vegas that had podcasting as part of the event, but it wasn't the focus. Mm-hmm. And I, spent money to go out and be a part of that event. And I remember hearing other people saying the same question that I had asked myself many times: why is there no podcasting conference? And when I heard that at that event, I knew, I was like, okay, there's enough people that want this. It just needs to be created. And how do you create something that you've never done before and be responsible? And so, Brenda, this is the strategy we went through. I collaborated. I found some other people that I thought, these are folks that I can align with, that I trust, that I know are going to represent this opportunity the right way, but they're smart, they're strategic, and these are people I know I can work with because I like their personalities. And we teamed up, and then we asked the question, who do we know? Is there anyone in our network that has experience with creating an event that's, larger event? And we did. I had interviewed someone on my podcast named Philip Taylor. He's the founder of the FinCon Financial Bloggers Conference. We had a conversation with Philip. I reached out to him and asked him, would you want to talk to us just for a little bit about this? And he was super nice because I'd had him as an interview guest on my podcast. He knew me. I had a relationship with him, so it wasn't inappropriate for me to ask him that.
Right.
And he said yes, and we had a call, and we talked, and I said, if you were to do events all over again, what would you do? And he spelled it out. Well, I would consider this, I would do this, I would definitely stay away from this. And after that call, we knew enough to take the next step. So the next step was to validate, because it's one thing to have an idea, Brenda, but it's another thing to make sure the idea is going to work, right? And this is a mistake that people make, is they have a good idea and then they'll spend lots of time and resources and energy on an idea that's not proven in the marketplace. So we wanted to test and validate the idea. The way that we did that was a crowdfunding campaign. We used Kickstarter, and we didn't have a big email list, Brenda. There was not a history of successfully funded events on Kickstarter. There was a lot of reasons for us to say, oh, this is a bad idea, let's just walk away. But we felt really strongly about it. We believed that's what we needed to do. We reached out to the community that we did have, even though we didn't have a large email list. We reached out and said, hey, will you support this? Will you speak at it? Will you share it with your network? And we posted a Kickstarter campaign. It was nerve-wracking. We were scared. We weren't sure if it was going to work. But in a 9 hours, Brenda, we hit the minimum value that we needed to hit to be successful. And after 30 days, we were over 3 times the amount that we needed.
Wow.
And it was just like an amazing deal. And there's some strategy that go into crowdfunding. If anybody's considering crowdfunding, there's an awesome free resource. It's a podcast called Crowdfund Genius. And I would encourage anybody who's considering a way to validate their idea through a crowdfunding campaign, check out that podcast, Crowdfund Genius. But we did the crowdfunding campaign. We had enough money, and then we learned as we went. Brenda, we got good advice. We checked out, other successful models that people use. And August of last year, we had an event never existed, and we had 600 podcasters pay and attend that event. I mean, that is something else, and I still can't believe it. Now, that's a miracle. God allowed that to happen. It took a lot of hard work, Brenda. Let's not kid ourselves.
Yeah,
I mean, this didn't just appear out of nowhere. It was a lot of sweat and time put into it, but I think that God blesses those who are smart, who are strategic, who are seeking Him, and who are not afraid to be bold and courageous, just like Joshua was, right? He said, be strong and courageous, and he was, and he had victory because of that.
Wow. So, and when is the podcast movement this year?
It's the first weekend of August. It's actually, we're doing some workshops for people that don't have a podcast, that are interested in starting a podcast. We have a workshop for them, and we're doing something innovative this year, Brenda. It's Soy Podcaster. There's no Spanish-speaking podcasting event anywhere. So we're doing a workshop for Spanish-speaking podcasters, and we're doing a workshop for women podcasters. It's just a cool thing. So that's on Friday, July 31st, and then the actual event conference is August 1st and August 2nd.
And that's a weekend, you said?
It is. Yeah, we try to do it on a weekend because there's a lot of podcasters that are hobbyists that have day jobs and family responsibilities. So we decided a weekend was a good way to go.
Okay, that's awesome.
That's in Fort Worth, Texas, by the way.
Fort Worth, Texas. And
That's
I know you had said something to me about it, and I would love to come. If somebody wanted to come, or do you ever give scholarships away or anything like that? Is that
Well,
something
no, I mean it's a for-profit business, and it costs a lot of money to do the event, so we're not giving spots. But that said, on the Friday, there's 2 events that are open to the public. So if anybody's within distance and wants to be a part of it but can't attend the full event, we have a thing called PMX on Friday, and that's a new thing that we're trying this year. That is it's like TED Talks, like TEDx Talks, but for podcasters. So that event, PMX, is going to be free, and there's going to be some amazing, innovative, and diverse topics. Sessions, not sessions, but talks, TEDx-style talks at the PMX event. That's on Friday, July 31st. And then there's a free event that evening, the Academy of Podcasters Awards. We started our own award. We partnered with Stitcher Radio. And yeah, this is going to be a really cool thing. It's kind of like the Oscars for podcasting. It's an academy of people who are voting on nominated podcasts in different categories to decide who the winners are. It's not a popularity contest. It's academy based on the nominations makes those selections. And then we have a Hall of Fame as well. So the Hall of Fame for podcasting. We're so excited. Those 2 events are free. If anybody's anywhere near Dallas-Fort Worth on Friday, July 31st, and money's an issue, you can't come to the full conference, we still encourage you to consider coming on that Friday, because we got a couple of things. So we're trying to be as available as possible to the whole community, that even if not everyone is able to make it for other stuff. So that's where we are this year, Brenda. Hopefully we can grow to a point where we can do some more. But that's
amazing. I'm so excited. Let me ask you a question. When it comes to podcasters, how many? I mean, you may or may not know this answer, but how many podcasters are there, like, that are out here doing what you're doing, and that are trying to grow a business through podcasting?
It's surprisingly low. So if you consider English-speaking blogs, just English-speaking blogs, there's like almost 500 million, I think. It's a large number. And then you look at YouTube and video content. I mean, there's just unbelievable amount of hours uploaded to YouTube. I couldn't tell you because I don't remember right off the top of my head, but there's just an exorbitant amount of YouTube content uploaded in video every week. Now, in comparison, 450 plus million English-speaking blogs plus countless hours of YouTube. Now, podcasting is like an oasis, because there might be there's less than probably 400,000 podcasts that are in existence, and then to top that, 90% of those, of that 400,000 plus, are dormant or abandoned, meaning people just stop doing it for whatever. They're not doing that show anymore, or the quality's not that great. So you can
90%.
Yeah, it's a ridiculous number. And what's happening is everybody has their mobile devices now. More and more people are starting to listen to podcasts because podcasts are so easily accessible in mobile devices, and technology and implementation in new vehicles is going to allow podcasting to be available in newer vehicles. I mean, podcasting is not going away. It's a huge opportunity right now for people to jump in and share what God's put on your heart to share. And there's people that are listening that will enjoy that. And I get emails from around the world, Brenda. It still blows my mind. I get emails from people in Africa and from Europe and from Singapore and Australia. I get people write to me all the time, "Hey, I love this. Thank you for sharing this." And I would never connect to those people had it not been for a podcast.
That's amazing. How would someone get started on podcasting? What would be the best way to actually start a podcast?
I think if you've got a blog currently, there's a way where you could just record an audio version of that blog on your mobile device. And it could be as simple as you just saying, "Hey, this is Brenda McGraw, and this is the audio blog. This is the audio version of my post. So let's get started." If you kind of put out the expectation right in the beginning, most people are pretty cool about that. There's more advanced ways and apps on mobile devices where you can add in intro music and outro music. But I would say if you're looking just to test the waters and you have some kind of written content, consider maybe doing an audio version of your blog. There's free tutorials out there that are really good. John Lee Dumas does a podcast called Entrepreneur on Fire, and he's created a whole series of podcasts that are free podcast training. So you can just do a Google search for John Lee Dumas and podcast training, and you'll find it real quickly. It's in iTunes. And then Pat Flynn, who's an amazing guy. He's created a free podcasting video tutorial. It's at podcastingtutorial.com.
Yeah, I think those are two. Up before.
Yeah, those are two great free resources that don't cost you any money. You don't have to opt in. You don't have to give your email address to get that free training, and that'll give you enough, hopefully enough to get going. And there's a lot of paid opportunities as well, but I would say check out the free before you want to take a deeper step. So
absolutely. So I mean, most people can just use their own website, and they could start it that way. Do you also post your stuff on like iTunes or YouTube, or what do you do?
I try to have my show available in as many places as possible. So what I do is I host my audio. I upload the audio version. It's a podcast, so of course it's an audio version. But I upload the audio file to SoundCloud.com. Mm-hmm. And SoundCloud has its own community, so I get some people that listen on SoundCloud. But then I share it, like you said, in iTunes, and then there's other things like Stitcher Radio. My show is now on iHeartRadio, and the show is just in different places, like YouTube. There's a way where you can share an audio podcast and put an image on it and put it into your free YouTube channel. So I've now started syndicating the podcast with just artwork and putting it on my YouTube channel. So I do have the podcast in YouTube. So I'm putting it in different places, and there's some people that find it in those different spots, but I think most people tend to find it on iTunes.
Okay, iTunes. So I use just basically YouTube and then my website, so I need to expand it a little bit.
I think you could. I think you could take the audio from the video and you could create an audio podcast, or you could create a video podcast. I don't know if you knew that, but there's video podcasting. So.
Really? Now, how many people are doing video podcasting?
Actually, it's less than audio, so you have an advantage for people who are making video content. You're using it in YouTube, that's great, but why not repurpose that and put that in the same stuff, put it into iTunes as a video podcast, because not everyone's doing video podcasting. So that's a good point, Brenda.
Is there a cost to put it in iTunes for people that are interested in that?
Nope.
No cost.
None at all. Nope.
You just have to have that little bit of technology and know how to do it, right?
Yeah, and I don't have a video podcast, so I'm not the authority on that. But there's plenty of Facebook groups for podcasting, and I would encourage you, if that resonates with you, that's something that you're interested in, go and join a free Facebook group and just ask that question. Hey, I'm interested in doing a video podcast. I have video content. How would I get this set up? And there'll be like 10 people that'll jump in and say, hey, you do this. So that's a little trick right there. If you don't know an answer to a question, go find a Facebook group and ask that question. I found that to be a really cool way to get. Now, sometimes you get all kinds of different answers, so you have to know what's the right answer. But
I joined. I
think that's a good start.
There's one called She Podcast, and I joined that one as well recently. Yep. So
yeah, I know the ladies that run that. They're great.
Okay, good. Well, let me ask you this: do you interview others on your show, on your podcast, and how would people get in touch with you if you were to interview them, or they want to be on your show?
Well, for me, I select the guests, so we do get a lot of people that ask to be on the show, and typically, unless we have a connection with them and it makes sense, we don't really consider that. But there are a lot of podcasts out there that would love to have you on their show because they're looking for good guests. So if you're considering ways to be guests on podcasts, I would encourage you to start looking in iTunes and figure out what are some shows that are within your realm or in your interest or your niche, and consider contacting the host. You can usually go to their website and send them an email and contact the host and say, hey, I'm so-and-so. If you ever need another guest on your show, I would love to be considered. Here are questions that you can ask me. Pre-write your questions. Make it as easy on the host as possible. So here's the questions you can ask me. Here's 8. I would do no less than 8. You can pick one of these or all of these, and then just say, here's my website. If I can ever, fill a need and be a guest, I'll make this as easy on you as possible. I'll share it out to my network. There will be plenty of podcasters that say, oh, Brenda just made my life so easy. I don't have to research. I don't have to do anything. I can just bring Brenda on. She's going to share her expertise, and I can share that with my audience. And that's a simple thing for me. So I would say don't be discouraged. There's plenty of shows out there that will embrace that, but you need to do the homework. You need to, reach out to the right shows that are a good fit, and you need to give them the questions, give them your bio, give them your headshot, give them all that stuff so they don't have to sit there and think, well, I'm not going to I'm not going to research someone I don't know just because they want to be on my show. You've just made it real simple for them, and you've explained why your message is a good fit for their audience. So I think that's a good strategy that not a lot of people think about.
Great strategy. So let me ask you, if there's 400,000 podcasters and only 90% of those people are doing anything with it, how many listeners are there out here for all those? Do you know? I mean, are people...
Well, there's about only 10% of that are you actually doing something that's active.
Right.
So it's even less than what you just described.
So you're talking 40,000, 40,000 people are actually, doing it on a regular basis.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And if you look in iTunes, it could be less than that. But the point is it's a smaller haystack for sure. It's a good way to be found. And because, as we mentioned, more and more people have their mobile device, the recent iOS 8 update for people that have iPhones and iPads, that has the podcasting app hard coded on your phone.
Wow.
And there's been so many people that have been like, what is this app? And they go in and they start looking. And now they're like, hey, I'm interested in ministry, or I'm interested in this thing. Oh, there's Brenda. Right? And they wouldn't have found you any other way. So now's the time. Seriously, definitely consider a podcast, because as more and more people start to pick up on this, it is only going to grow and it's only going to become more relevant. I think we're just in the infancy. I think several years from now, we're going to see podcasting in a whole new way. So
well, even
get in while you can.
My husband was looking through, I guess it was on Apple TV or something, and he said there's a whole, I guess a channel for podcasting on that as well. So
there you go. That didn't surprise me at all.
Yeah. So, okay. Let's see. Can you give us maybe a little peek into your personal life and that sort of thing? I mean, are you married? You have children? What do y'all do for fun and that sort of thing? I know you live in Florida, right?
I do. I live in South Florida, so the weather's typically pretty nice here. Summer's a little hot, though. That's what oceans and swimming is for, and air conditioning.
My sister lives down in Fort Myers. We always go to Naples. That's our favorite vacation spot. So.
As you should, Brenda. I love Naples too.
Yes.
So I am married, and I have a 4-year-old daughter, and her name is Lana. And my wife is originally from South Florida. I'm not originally from here. I grew up in Alabama, but I've lived in Hawaii and New England and all over. But I love South Florida now. It took me a while to adapt, but as we found a good church and as we found different things that I'm interested in, there's a good tech startup community here. There's a good WordPress community. There's now a growing podcasting community. There's just some good folks in this area, and I think that's an encouragement to anyone who's watching this today is think local. Definitely think local. Like look on meetup.com and look at the topics that you're interested in. And there's probably meetup groups that are in your town of fellow people who are like-minded, who are passionate about what you're passionate about. Mm-hmm. And it's not necessarily church. It's something outside of that. So I would encourage you, if you're looking to connect with more people who are like-minded, meetup.com is a good way to do that. If you don't see a meetup that fits the interest that you have, consider creating it. Seriously. You could create it and you'd be surprised at how many people would say, me too. I'm interested in this. I just didn't think anybody else was. There's people searching on meetup.com. You can start a Facebook group page. It's free to start a Facebook group. You can start a Facebook group for what you're interested in. People will start to naturally find it. We started a Facebook group last year, and now it's at like 1,200 people. And it's like, we didn't go beg people to join that group. It's just people have found it and they just wanted to be a part of it.
What's the name of your Facebook group?
It's related to the event that we have. So it's Podcast Movement is the name of the Facebook group. Yeah.
Very good.
But I think there's so many ways to connect. But back to your point, my daughter and I, we spend a lot of time together. Love my wife, and we just love South Florida. And I think embrace the community you're in if you can. Start figuring out who are the people who are like you, and try to connect with those people and create meetups. And I think you'll really enjoy those connections that you haven't made yet. There's always somebody who's looking for a Brenda to learn from, and you'll learn from them as well. So.
Oh yeah, it's amazing. As a matter of fact, a fellow that down there, Catalyst John.
Aha! Yes.
He just became my coach not long ago. So I've been working with John
Oh,
for about a
love him.
month now. So
Wonderful.
So I was telling him I was going to be doing an interview with you. He said, "Yeah, I just had dinner with him the other night or something."
That is true. He and I ate at House of Blues in downtown Disney in Orlando. So
yeah, that's cool.
Catalyst John, I love him, and yeah, his website's catalystjohn.com. Great guy.
Yeah, he is a good guy and stuff. And then my brother lives right outside of Orlando, and my sister lives down there. So yeah, we love Florida. So.
Brenda, are you thinking about making the move?
No,
I'm hearing some.
I've already done that one time. I actually moved to Florida, and we had to move back south again. So we're in South Carolina. So,
fair enough. Yeah, stay in the South. I get it.
So, yeah, but okay. I know we've probably gone a little bit long today, but Jared, I appreciate your time with us today. It's been a real blessing to get to know you. I've heard about you. I've seen you on Facebook. You know, I've read some of your book and everything, and just real excited about what you're doing and the podcast movement and everything that you're doing to move us all into the next generation or whatever that we need to be doing. So but before we go, is there anything that I can maybe pray for you about?
I would say, we're always trying to be innovative, and I think my desire is to fulfill the potential that God has for me, and that's my encouragement to those who are watching is start praying and asking God, God, I want you to fulfill the potential that you have for me, whatever that is. Not for your own namesake, not for your own vanity, but for God's glory. If you pray that God will fulfill the potential He has for you, He will. That's His will for your life. So pray that, and God will bless you. He will work in your life. So that's my encouragement to you. So yeah, Brenda, please pray that God will continue to work out and fulfill this potential that He has for me.
Awesome. Well, I will pray that in just 1 second. I want everybody to realize again and remember his website. It's starvethedoubts.com. This is Jared Easley. His book is called Podcasting Good to Great, How to Grow Your Audience Through Collaboration. And you can find that on Amazon, and I'm sure on your website or anywhere as well. If you have the littlest desire to even start podcasting, go to Podcast Movement. I would love to try to get there. I'm going to see what I can do. So
you're invited.
Yeah, I know. I just got to figure. I've got so many things going on and a couple other conferences I'm going to this year. So, but I will work on it. So, but let me go ahead and close this in prayer, and we will get going. Dear Heavenly Father, God, thank you for today and for all your blessings, and thank you, God, for who you are and what you mean to everyone that's listening today. God, I pray that as Jared has spoke today, God, help us just to be what you'd have us to be. God, help us to influence others with the blessings that you've given us, the desires that you put in our hearts, that we can actually help someone else, Lord, to find that purpose and that life that you would have them to lead, Lord, through their calling. God, we love you. We praise you. I just lift up Jared and his family and his little girl, Lord, and pray that you'll continue to help him be an influence in the podcasting world. We love you and praise you, and that's all these things in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Brenda, thank you so much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to have you here with us today, and I will get everything, available for my readers and for my listeners, and blessings to you. God bless you as you go on and keep moving forward, okay? It's great to talk to you today.
Likewise. Thank you, Brenda.
Thanks. Bye-bye.